Okay, I believe we are live, so welcome back to Missing Persons Uncovered. I'm Caroline Humer, a global online protection expert. Karen, you're mute. You need to unmute, otherwise it won't work.
I'm Karen Shalev. I'm a professor in missing person studies at the University of Portsmouth in the UK.
Every time we have a technical issue, but it will work once we're at the end of this season 4. I appreciate for everybody joining us in this podcast series. We seek to understand the complexities of a global issue. Every year, we understand that about 100,000, hundreds of thousands of people go missing worldwide. In every episode, we talk to professionals to share insights into how we can all be more aware and take actions to protect vulnerable people in our communities and families from going missing. This week, we are joined by Busra Sarac, as well as Aurora Perez Flores. So welcome to you. And before we introduce them and go into the conversation around enforced disappearance, as always, let me provide you some housekeeping rules. There will be a new episode every 2 weeks on a different topic with different professionals from social workers, police, and researchers. If you are interested in missing persons and like the podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as on any of your podcast platforms. You can find us under Missing Persons Uncovered. We do have a website, missingpersonsuncovered.com. Karen and I do not provide assistance in specific missing person cases, so please contact your local NGO or your police department. Feel free to comment or ask questions throughout the live's discussion in your chat comment. Please avoid mentioning specific cases or names, and let's keep it also professional. We would love to know where you are coming and tuning in from. So please say hello on where you are coming from. This week, I'm in Hungary. It was a last minute choice of coming to Hungary for a long weekend as it is May 1st in Europe. And Karen is in the UK.
So as part of season 4 being live, we thought to start each episode with quotes from our guests that have special meaning for them. So Bushra, let's start with you. What's your quote?
Karen is
You need to unmute as well.
Sorry. So, okay, my quote for today is violence doesn't happen in vacuum, but it happens in context. So this is my quote. Should I explain my quote a little bit? Because
Yes,
because
please
I
do.
think when violence occurs to anyone, regardless of their identity, gender, sex, religion, there's always reasons behind it. It's most of the time the combination of internal and external factors that contributes to violence that people have been subjected to. And the case that I am going to talk about today is to understand the context behind violence that happened, against the Yazidi community today.
Thank you very much. And Aurora, what about you?
Yes, thank you first of all for having me, and thank you to the audience that are listening. My quote is quite long. I'm going to read it. It says, "The body is also a narrative." And I choose this one because I'm a forensic anthropologist. So it's a unique one. From it, we don't only extract data, but above all, emotions. To unear the body is unearth the truth. To individualize is to give chase to a pain and life cut short. To give a name is to open the possibility of returning the body to a family that has waited for years to close a wound that never stopped bleeding. It's a quote from a forensic anthropologist in Colombia his name is Helka Alejandra Quevedo, and the book is Body Text of Cruelty. And I choose this quote because it reminds me every time that I don't analyze just bones, I analyze people that share with me some days, and I can talk to the family what they wanted to tell, but they couldn't. So that's why I choose that quote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'll stay with you when just to give us a little bit of introduction of who you are, what it is that you do, and kind of that connection that you have. What is it professionally to enforce disappearances?
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. So, well, I'm a forensic anthropologist. I'm original from Colombia, but I specialize in forensic anthropology in Mexico, where I have been working with human identification cases for over, I guess, like 10 years now. So I started out collaborating with international cooperations agencies, supporting projects focuses in disappearance and human identification, and especially along US-Mexico border, where I work for 5 years. At first, my role was more external, but eventually, at the request of the attorney office, I became involved in the anthropological analysis of the bodies. And right now, I'm a professor at the National Autonomous University of Mexico at the National School of Forensic Sciences. And we also participate in projects in human identification and disappearance at the Laboratory of Forensic Anthropology and Ontology.
Okay. Thank you very much. And Bushra, tell us a little bit about yourself and
Yeah,
what it
sure.
is that you do.
Okay, so I'm a senior lecturer in international security and gender studies at the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at the University of Portsmouth. So what I do is that I joined Portsmouth in 2022 as a lecturer in terrorism studies. So I'm not criminologist by background, I would say. It's a criminology is an interdisciplinary discipline, isn't it? So we come from different disciplines. My background is political science and international relations. And what I do research-wise, what I do is that I'm very much interested in understanding and analyzing global South women's experiences of gender-based violence they experience in terrorism. But not only in terrorism, I would say, I would extend this, but also in post-conflict situation. So over the last, I would say, 7 to 8 years, I've been working on the Yazidi community because people, I think the Yazidi community came to the attention of the world in 2014 when the ISIS campaign against them, took place in August 2014. But actually, I believe that the genocide against them is ongoing, even now. In 2025, so I remain interested in this community by conducting qualitative research. So I'm a qualitative researcher. I'm interested in, the talking to women who experience certain types of violence and understanding their insecurities, not only in terrorism, but in after terrorism, after they are freed or they manage to escape from violence. But more recently, though, along with this community that are mostly live in Kurdistan region of Iraq, I developed an interest in Afghanistan these years, these days, and I'm really interested in understanding their experiences under the US-led coalition forces between 2001 and 2021, because most of the time we talk about the Taliban and their mistreatment of women, as you can imagine. But I think we don't know much about what happened to them during these 20 years. So this is currently what I'm interested in, along with the Yazidi community.
So just because we're going to probably focus more on the Yazidi community from you, can you give us a little bit of background for people who are not familiar? Maybe you heard the name in the media, but not familiar with who the Yazidi people are. And it's quite a complex kind of ethnic minority group. So if you can tell us a little bit about them.
Yeah, sure. It's a very good point, actually, because I started working on this community in 2000, I think it was 17. And even I believe that even now, not many people know about the Yazidi community, although the scale of violence they experienced was unprecedented. But in 2016, so very few people had heard of the Yazidi community, even myself. And I also, did some research on this. And I would say that Yazidi community is a very private community. And then members of the community, as I mentioned, mostly residing in northern Iraq, but also in neighboring countries. So there are Yazidis in Turkey, in southeastern Turkey, part of Iran, North Syria as well. But so it's an ethnic and religious identity, I would say. Yazidism is a religion. And like many other, the religious minority groups, such as, Alawites, it is impossible to convert to Yazidism. It is only to be born into it, right? Both mothers and fathers need to be a Yazidi. But what is really crucial about the Yazidi identity, I would say, is that although they have like a specific identity, they also have commonality. They have something in common with other religions, such as believing in God, such as Judaism, Islam, Christianity. They have these commonalities, but they are quite unique in their religious practices as well. They have specific shrines, for instance, in Kurdistan region and also in other parts of the world. The way that they pray and they, they practice their religion is quite unique and different. And they believe that, and that's why I think in order to protect their own identity, because we are talking about they are not even 1 million people, so in order to protect their identity, they are, it is really difficult to reach this population for research purposes, even for research purposes, because they believe that they experienced nearly 74 or 73 genocides so far. Not only the most recent one was the so-called Islamic State, but they also they believe that they experienced genocide, under Saddam Hussein regime, under Persian regime. And they also believe they experienced, the violence under Ottoman regime, right? Ottoman Empire. So this kind of stuff, just they develop coping strategies, I would say, just within the community to make sure that they are not disappearing from the world. And then, as I mentioned, few people have been talking about this community. I am one of them. So that's why I'm just trying to I wouldn't call myself an activist, but I'm just standing in solidarity with, what happened to them. That's why I just keep talking about what happened to them and what is happening to them even now.
So obviously today's focus is enforced disappearances, and one of the things that I asked both of you is I always like to start with a definition. Just
Yeah.
let's kind of try to not put it in a box, but create a language where we all understand what it means. So actually, Aurora, I'll start with you because you have kind of the Latin America, South America view. And how would you define, in your words, or if you want to read any official definition, for you, what does enforced disappearances mean?
Well, that is really an interesting question because help me to explain, sorry, to you and the audience how the process search in Mexico has been changed, because I think it's quite different from what happened in Latin America as well. When we talk about disappearance, it's not just someone missing. It often signifies a crime where a person is secretly taken and their fate is hidden. So this is different from, a regular kidnapping where they usually contact for ransom or someone chooses to live on their own. Sadly, in Mexico, when someone disappears, the assumption, is often that they were taken by someone else, either individuals or as part, as we know, the enforced disappearance. So in 2017, start the law for disappearance, and thus allowed to create like a big institution that is the National Search Commission, that is work for the national and local level. And with this institution, so now the families can go to report or to file a disappearance report immediately. So before was to wait 72 hours, 24, so that has been changed. And something that really comes with this law is that we are looking these persons alive. I understand that in some countries, for example, they had a limit when they are going to start even a body, but here we start to look for this person alive. So always, even legally, is to ensure that the search is going to be immediate and diligent search. Actually, the definition that we have is the one that has the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons Against Enforced Disappearance. So the law talking about just not only disappearance by individuals, but also enforced disappearance. On paper, I know it sounds excellent, that how we work in all the states, but the reality is quite different. Today we have like over 100,000 people missing in Mexico, and it's quite a critical situation right now. So
Is that just from enforced disappearances?
we don't
100,000?
know. That is one question that always asks to the governments, and even we have a database that is recording, but we don't know. We cannot separate if this is enforced disappearance or is by another person. So probably most of them are related to narco traffic in Mexico, but also because we have this corruption level in all the institutions, so probably it's going to be enforced disappearance as well, but we don't know, and that is a problem.
So, Aurora, sorry,
Yes.
just a quick follow-up on the definition, and maybe Bushra, this also falls into you as well, is when you're saying that the person enforced disappearance is a person who's forced is disappeared because of certain reasons, is it because of a state? Political state, or is it also because it could be a gang member or a gang related, or would that not be constituted as enforced disappearance?
In the law, there is, definition that the enforced disappearance is related with the government or with the state.
Okay.
The thing is that because all the roots of this corruption are going until, all the government with the narco and everything one just playing.
Yeah.
So for sure, we even cannot separate and we cannot understand how it's going. And it's sad because, as you notice already, if we don't understand, we cannot investigate the cases. And there is a famous case here, probably you hear about Ayotzinapa. There are 43 students that disappears. And what the investigation understand after 10 years is that all the levels of the police in that state have something to do with the disappearance. And even the high level mans of the, not just the police, but the army as well.
Yeah.
And they just took the students and leave to the narco that was there in that place. So that's the thing, no? That sometimes we knew these stories, but most of the time for these 100 people, we don't know anything about
Bushra, you had your hand up.
it.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question to Aurora actually about
Okay.
these enforced disappearances. Then I could, if you like, add something to the definition of enforced disappearance. So my question was, Aurora, so you said that how many people did you say disappeared? Is it one?
The last time that we count, because the government actually disappeared the database. So we have like 100,000 missing people in Mexico, more than that. And also we know that everyone is not going to file a claim or they are going to do the
Yeah.
report because they are afraid. So for sure it's going to be more, but it's still 100,000, that's a
Yeah.
lot.
Absolutely. And my question was about the kind of maybe the gender or the age group of these disappeared people. Do we know how many of them are males, females, or from different, identities? Do we have statistics on this?
We do. I don't have here the number, but what I know, and even is what we saw in the forensic services, mostly they are men. Between 20, but we are seeing a less like 19, 14 until 14. That is the group that we have mostly in the forensic services, and that's the group that report. Of course, we have as well a highest number of feminicides, but still the most of the people that disappear is men, are men, sorry.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, thank you. About the
Sure, what's your, yes, let's start with the definition and then see a little bit about the numbers and the background as well.
Yeah, sure. And I would say the definitions are a bit complex. So people come up with different definitions, right? But by definition, this is what we know at least. I think what we know is that the enforced disappearance occur when three elements combine. We have deprivation of liberty, right? The involvement of state officials, government officials, and also a refusal to acknowledge the whereabouts of the disappeared person, right? We don't know where they are at the moment, whether they're alive or dead. But the thing is that when we look at so as Aurora mentioned, this is in theory. So the reality is a bit more complex and complicated because most of the time it is, so many actors, involved in this enforced disappearance. And even when we look at the definition provided by Amnesty International, for instance, even now, they say that sometimes, the enforced disappearance can be committed by armed non-state actors as well. Right? I think this is a really important point to note. And
I was going to ask about, for example, groups that take in Africa or in other countries to create child soldiers. Would that be considered enforced
yeah,
disappearance?
could be. Yeah, if you don't know their whereabouts, what happened to them, if they were taken against their will, this could be considered, enforced disappearance. But either the case, whether state involved or non-state actor involved, it is a crime under international law. Right? As Aurora mentioned, this is under International Convention. It's a very long name, which came into effect in 2010, I think. So it is a crime. So it is a crime under criminology, international, criminal law, but it is also human rights violations under international humanitarian law. Anyway, so I think so we all have responsibility as an organization, as an international community, because it's I think the extent of the problem is just, it's so wide. It's not limited to just one country, the Mexico or Iraq. It's just happening taking place all over the world at the moment as we speak.
So I went on the internet and I was looking at some numbers, right? And I wanted to ask you both on that. So the United Nations Working Group on Enforced and Involuntary Disappearance recorded over 59,000 cases across 110 countries since the 1980s, which seems extremely low to me. And then in other sources, I found, for example, over 100,000 people have disappeared in Syria. In Colombia, over 111,000 people who have been victim to enforced disappearance since 2020 up to 2024. You just mentioned Aurora, 100,000 people in Mexico. So we're getting into already, just by me reading statistics from 3 countries, to around 300,000 people. So we're likely to get, if we're counting it, somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million people just off the bat, probably higher, which is extraordinary numbers, isn't it? So I wanted to kind of ask, and Bushra, maybe I'll go to you. What's the assumption almost when somebody is reported to have enforcedly disappeared? Do we assume, Aurora, you touched on it already. Do we assume that they're alive? Do we search for somebody who's alive? Is the search assumes not? But what's the outcome of these cases normally? Do we have any information? Like, what's your experience been?
Yeah, so in my case, but just generally speaking, I would say people have the right to go missing, right? So that's the one thing. So who is searching for them? Or, I mean, when we talk about statistics, I mean, I'm not undermining this statistic provided by organizations, of course. They are important to contextualize the issue to understand how wide the problem is. But the thing is that I think it is nearly impossible to get an accurate number of the disappeared people. I think as Aurora, having just nodding his head, definitely this is the case. But in my case, speaking from my experiences, in the Yazidi community context, so 10 years on, there are still 2,000 missing Yazidis. 2,000. So in 2014, there are around 6,000 Yazidi women were kidnapped, by the so-called Islamic State, and some of them managed to escape, some of them unfortunately were killed, and some of them were liberated by the Peshmerga forces. But the thing is that 10 years on, 2,000 Yazidis, and they are believed to be women and children. So the elderly women are presumed dead at the moment, I would say I think it's just a couple of I think Karen and I think I talked to Karen about this just I think a couple of maybe 1 month ago. A Yazidi girl emerged from Gaza, right? I think we talked about this. So I think it implies that they might be still alive, right? And then the 2 other Yazidi girls emerged from Turkey. I think it was a couple of years ago, and they were sent back to their families, right, in northern Iraq. I think so. That's why I think that these 2 examples are, I think, good enough to say that it is just, it's really impossible. And we have our own assumptions about the enforced disappeared, the disappeared people, right? Maybe their age group, their gender, what kind of factors contribute to their enforced disappearances. But at the end of the day, I think all people have unique experiences, and the statistics are not I would say, accurate when it comes to reality.
All right. Do you want to add
Yes, of
anything
course.
to that?
Yeah, no, as Burra said, I mean, we even cannot like account what is the phenomenon around and behind all the number that we have. When the National Commission started in 2017, one of the main jobs was to do this database. At the end, like in the finish of the last government, they wanted to change the meaning, what is disappearance, and they changed for no located, and they like put just so many numbers, and I don't know, distribute the numbers that they told you that 100 people. So we don't know if they are no located, disappearance, and for disappearance, like to change the meaning of these words. So there is a powerful slogan among the families that I really like. They say, they took them alive, we want them back alive. So when we start the searching, we are looking for with the assumption that they are alive. Of course, for my experience and the experience of the colleagues in this system, we know that after a month in a violent country as we are, I mean, it's not possible that these persons find alive. So, and I think the families know as well. I haven't told you, but here in Mexico, there is a unique case, and it's spread as well in Latin America, that the families take an active role in the search of these missing people. So they are allowed by law to work with the forensic teams and also with international teams to go to look and to search for the people, but still they cannot go to the forensic services to identify them. So even if we have, all this like a wave for many help, even from the families, if we don't know how many we are looking for, we are not going to have like a strong policies to fight really this human right violation. So it's a shame that we don't know how many people are missing. I mean, we have like a number, but I guess it's, sometimes I say it's the double. And I feel, like if it's the double, it's really a really big problem. But sometimes I feel it is like that.
Karen, can I just
Yeah.
come in there
Yes.
for a second? And I think I agree with you, Aurora. The numbers are double, if not more, regardless of why they went missing, is because we don't have numbers, regardless of the reason they go missing. But with the enforced disappearance, I wonder, and maybe this is different between the work that the both of you do, is are you looking for an individual or are you looking for a mass group? A lot of times, Aurora, you talk about mass graves or mass amount of groups of people. So are you then searching for one individual at a time and then find out it becomes a bigger issue? Or are you looking for a big number at the same time because because they disappear on a very short period of time, if that makes sense.
It does, Caroline, but it's so sad what I'm going to tell you because it has like 2 weeks that United Nations say to the government to explain what happened with the forced disappearance in Mexico, and they deny. They deny that we don't have enforced disappearance here. So if it's the government has that position, I mean, for all the institutions that the government, I mean, financial, they are going to say the same. The truth is that the process of searching is going to be individualized, by one, but also they wanting to like make these great campaigns to do what they call massive identification. So like from 2018 until 2020, the Search Commission start to collect the DNA from all the families and to try to compare with the bodies that we have in the forensic services. But as you know, genetics is not the solution. So at the end, this massive, sometimes I feel like it is economic massive because genetics is quite expensive.
Yeah.
So, but still, we didn't get the result that we want. Right now, they are trying with fingerprints, but we don't have like a national database to compare. So that is like a wall. So we try, I mean, the Search Commission try both like individualized, but also this general, but still we don't have anything to compare or we cannot follow the patterns, like a human trafficking, something like that. But it still is, I mean, the investigation is really poor, I'm afraid to say.
So, yeah, and Bushra, from your perspective, are families like that? Are families from the Yazidi people in the community? Are they become kind of search experts, or is it for kind of they're told to wait and let the authorities do or not do what they want?
Yeah. So, sadly though, the thing is that the Yazidis themselves have been trying to find their missing ones. So there are, after these atrocities, we have had a couple of, the Yazidi activists, most of them are females, I would say this is, at least what I have seen. So they, form and created on international organizations or national organizations dedicated to find the missing ones. It is almost of the time, I would say, it's the Yazidi families themselves are just trying to take an action and find the missing ones. And then there was an opportunity, I attended an event where there was a government official from Iraq, and I had the opportunity to ask about these missing Yazidis. But I would say my question was not really answered. And then the thing is that the missing Yazidis is quite a complex phenomenon and complex issue. And the reason is that we are talking about terrorism and ISIS, one of the most brutal terrorist organizations we have ever seen, right? And then, so it is a bit more complicated in the Yazidi case because the Yazidis have had children as a result of sexual violence they were subjected to. And because of the unique Yazidi identity, these children are not welcomed by the Yazidi religious leaders. So
Because they are created outside of the Yazidi community.
absolutely, because under Iraqi law, these children are considered Muslims, but the mothers are not Muslims, right? They are Yazidis. And as I mentioned, you can't really convert, right? And they said, so it is believed that some Yazidis are missing because they find themselves in dilemma because they want to keep their children with themselves, right? And then if they want to keep themselves, they can't really return to their community, right? But if they leave their children, so they can go back, right, to their community. But what will happen to these children who are with their ISIS fathers, right? That's another. I think it adds another layer of difficulty when it comes to Yazidis. And there's also what we also know by evidence that, for instance, the thousands of, as you know, as we all know, hundreds of thousands of females are being held in detention camps in northeastern Syria at the moment. It's run by Syrian Democratic Forces. And we know that there are some Yazidis in these camps who don't identify themselves as a Yazidi. This is crucial. This is so important because they want to keep their children, right? They don't want to be separated. And so as I mentioned, my background is, so I approach this issue from a security perspective, right? This is a security problem. It's not only a humanitarian issue, but it is also a security problem, right? So these females need to be reintegrated with their community because they are part of this community. But what will happen to this? What would happen to children who are being kind of, you know, separated from their mothers, right? What is their future, right? Their future is unknown at the moment. Who will take care of them, right? If they're separated from their mothers. That's why the missing entities is the situation is a bit more complex than like a normal people have gone who have gone missing and then they reappear at some point. It's just the children also, there's also like kind of, if you like, children element in the Yazidis case.
So I was going to ask both of you, because we know the likelihood, certainly in Mexico, from the sound of it, is that it's not necessarily a good one of being found alive, whereas from your perspective, Bushra, there might be more if it's women. Do we have accounts of people who were enforced disappeared and returned to tell us about their experiences, what that's been like? So have you had
sorry.
any chance to hear?
No, I was thinking what say Busra, and now your question is, before, we were talking about what is the statistics, and now I realize that here there are mostly men, and the one that are looking for with these collectives that I told you, families, are mostly women. So that's how you can see how is the trend. But also we don't have anyone, to return from this enforced disappearance. Everyone that we are found dead. So we don't have many experience of, they are going to tell us what happened. I just know some few cases, and that is coming from migrants as well, because we don't have that problem. There are so many Central American people going to the US Mexican border, and they go through many ways, through taking a train that we call La Bestia, and also buy food, and also, staying a little time in Mexico, and after trying to cross the border. And these people, sometimes they have to choose between what kind of, like a band of the narco are going to join, because the only way they can, they have to be here in Mexico, and even to get the opportunity to cross the border is to stay a little while serving to the narco. So sometimes we hear the stories, still we are not really sure if it's true or not, because it's so difficult to get outside from that places. So, well, that's what I know. But to be honest, most people that is disappears here in Mexico, they are not going to find alive.
And you obviously therefore are left to work with the relatives. So my first question to you is, tell us a little bit more about the work that you do in the center, and then what ways are there from your perspective to support the relatives, and is there any infrastructure, is there any structured support? They're taking part in searches, but is there anything else that helps them deal with the disappearances that you know of? And also from your perspective, from your office and the work that you do when you liaise with them, how I'm assuming you're doing a very good job at being human and compassionate, but is there anything else to kind of support them?
Yes, of course. There is, as I told you before, it is an unique experience that Mexico has many of these mothers, daughters, wives just looking for the loved ones. And I trying to help from the organization that I have been working, they are wanted to knowledge the search techniques. So they are prepared to do like a real excavation with all the stuff. They recognize clandestine barriers. We are helping to do it. And, sometimes there are like people that like don't understand why we do this, because it's supposed to be, like a professional or expert archaeologist or expert anthropologist, but still these collectives are going to do it, even if we don't help or we help to them. So it's better to them to understand how they can do it. So we also teach sometimes how to distinguish between human bone and animal and another animal bone. And already they understand that it's a chain of custody, that they have to wait for the authority to take that bonds to be starting the process. So it is not easy at the beginning because, of course, there are so much pain around, and you start to listen the stories and you feel empathetic with them, and it's hard to listen that. But still, we are sure that we are helping for them to search. They are going to do it anyway. I guess that what we need, they already know the techniques and many institutions working in that. But now what they need is protection, because many of them had been killed as well, because for doing these things, they are a target already. And also, I guess that a key demand from the families is a constant communication from the authorities. They need to know how is the process. They need to know if they are going to do something with that, even if the time just passed. They need to have information. And already the institution, as the search commission and the attorney offices, doing this frequently, like they put these meetings in the workflow, like a standard, but it doesn't happen in all the states and no in all the offices. So I think there are some things that we can improve. And what we can see in Mexico is this growing movement, and to try to push from different institutions with the collectives and the civil society as well, to try to push the government to do something, anything, I guess, to do something to change this reality.
I think it's just acknowledging, as you said before, that the Mexico is not acknowledging that there have been enforced disappearances. It's just acknowledging it at the beginning to say it does exist is the first step, because then you could do something about it. But I also think that I wonder at what point, Aurora, do you get involved? Because the process of for a person going missing it can be pretty long, and to understand at what point does the person that's missing become an enforced disappearance versus a, can I say, general missing, is a difficult question. So at what point do you get involved? Is it already at that stage where they found a mass grave and you are then helping to identify, or are you involved beforehand?
When I was with the international institution, because I work with USA and German institution, my involvement was, at the beginning, just knowing the situation, trying to know how to help. But because I work with the state as well, so I involved in the forensic analysis of the individuals. So I have like these two views, and I understand how the families feel, because when you saw the institution in science, how it works, you understand what is the many problems that they demand. To be honest, I think that the word is overwhelming, like, it's too much. When I work with the states, it is too much, because we have so many bodies, we have so many analyses. There are like a backlog of the bodies that we need to identify already, and there is no a real number. Even we have like a 50,000 people that they don't have identity, and it's still in the forensic services. So I try, to get the data as quick as I can. And some of the attorney offices try to match with the files of the disappearance people. But still is something we need more expertise, people that have expertise, people that have experience. We need more, because there are a lot of work. But when you go outside, if I put myself in the place of the institution, well, I'm going to demand, that we need to do this quickly, and we need to be done properly, because sometimes they haven't do really well. So I have been working, in that two places, and I think so that I got a good view of what happened in the forensic services, and also the process of search and identification. And now with the university, well, which we are going to try to help the forensic scientists and also the families, because we are all in this together anyway.
Absolutely. Bushra, I had a question for you on your work, though, because you mentioned early on about, someone being found after they've been with ISIS for a long time and they suddenly were found in Gaza. I think you mentioned. I wonder, are the families, or maybe do you know if families ever sort of, is there a time when they give up, or when they say, there's the likelihood is not there, and how do you connect that with working with the families to ensure that they get closure, if at all, in those circumstances?
Yeah, so I actually talked to some Yazidi women. I interviewed them about their experiences after they reappear, right, from ISIS captivity. So I do remember one of the Yazidi women. I think she was around 17 years old, and it was in 2019. I think she stayed under ISIS captivity for 5 years, and she said that his dad was missing since 2014. And in that interview, she told me that she was still hoping that, she believed that her dad was alive during that time, but there was no evidence at all, right? But it's just this belief, right? This hope that I think she was trying to hold at that time, right? Just to move with her, the new life after the captivity, right? That's the thing about actually missing people or enforced disappearances, right? most of the time we call them survivors, right? When they came back alive. But are they really survivors, right? What about the problems they experienced before? Actually, they carry these problems with themselves, right? In their new life. And as I mentioned, so and I think that to answer your question, so I think it is most of the time, since, as a close-knit community, so when I talk to these women, so I mean, that was quite interesting. So they were not really talking about their own personal experiences and the problems they, faced, but they were talking about as a collective kind of identity and collective suffering, right? They derived the strong sense of kind of identity by referring to their collective suffering and collective experiences. And when it comes to the missing, the Yazidis, so they still hope that they are alive and they are fighting for it. And they are fighting for it by calling on the government over and over again to make sure that something is being done for the missing ones. But the thing is that, I mean, despite all these calls, right, and the efforts made by the Yazidi activists and organizations, it is sad that, I mean, not much is being done. And then the efforts are just, being carried out by the Yazidis themselves at the moment. But to be honest, as a human being, I'm also hopeful that most of them are still alive, because as I mentioned, they are emerging. And then, but if I can just refer back to the question that you asked, I think it was Karen, they asked about, well, I can't remember who asked this question, but whether we are looking at one person or just, I think it was Caroline, it was you. And then in the Yazidi case, I think the answer is yes or no, because if we just can find one Yazidi woman, we may be able to find other Yazidis as well, because most of the time what happened under ISIS captivity, several Yazidi women were kept in one single place. They were kept together. Of course, they had unique experiences, but they were kept together. So we also believe that some of the missing Yazidis are still together at the moment, right? So if we can find one person, we may also find other Yazidis as well, although not many, but we could find a few Yazidis.
And I'm just conscious of time. I mean, we can talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
And one of the things that strikes me about this is when we talk about one person that goes missing in the UK in a day-to-day scenario, we talk about quite a lot of agencies that can and sometimes should be involved, social services and the NHS, which is the health service, and so on, that come together to support that person and possibly their family. And my question is, do you see other agencies, or which agencies are involved in disappearance? We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people in specific countries. So is it just kind of a vacuum of lack of care and response, or are there agencies that at least try, that you can identify and say, they're trying? Maybe they're not succeeding too much, but at least they're trying. If we can, is there anything that you see that you can say, actually, there's other agencies or a number of agencies that try to do something?
Yeah. So in my case, obviously there are like a specific organizations that are dedicated to this issue. We have, for instance, Nadia Murad Initiative, and the founder of which is a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Nadia Murad. And then she's really dedicated to this issue. We have also a Free Yazidi Foundation, again, which was created by the Yazidis. So, and then the Yazidis themselves have been also trying to, it's just the, pressuring and, the pushing the government to do something about this. But again, it's a question mark. So what is being done? But I would say it is mostly the Yazidis. And I also know that there are like a couple of human rights lawyers that have been talking about Clooney, the wife of the George Clooney.
Well, Clooney.
Yeah, Emma Clooney has been the representative of Nadia Murad, right? She has been working on this, and there are also a couple of human rights lawyers, that specific lawyers, have been working on this issue. But generally speaking, I think the interest in the Yazidi community has waned after the physical defeat of the group, and this is so sad. I mean, because the longer we talk about the ISIS, the more attention they had received from the international community, right? And this is just, but it shouldn't be that way, right? And it shouldn't be really, because they should, I mean, we should continue to talk about the problems they face, because the more we talk about their problems, the more attention and the more resources they could get and receive from the international community, including the United Nations, right? Or for instance, we used to have a UNITAD, which was dedicated to, the collect evidence of crimes committed against the Yazidi community, but it was closed down by the request of the Iraqi government, right? And then the Yazidi community believed that they were kind of left alone in these efforts, especially when it comes to the missing Yazidis.
Yeah, I guess in
Uh,
Mexico, what happened the same. I mean, we closed down, I mean, from the start Trump with the administration, we used to have USAID. And now the only international is the United Nations as well, but they just focus on fingerprints. And we have the International Committee of the Red Cross. I guess we are a few of the countries that we have an office here, but they just only assist in technical, and there are more focuses to the migrants. So the only thing that we have is the civil society.
Yeah.
And of course, the institution from the state.
Yeah, I feel like the contexts are different, but we see similar problems, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
So kind of to leave people with takeaways, I guess, what would be your advice, tip, recommendation, anything like that we can advocate and say, if you heard this and it impacts you, or you have a passion for this field, what should happen next? What can we do to support this?
Okay, we'll start.
So, Aurora?
Everyone, yeah. I think that my main recommendation, and because I know many people listen outside from Mexico, is to seek information from reliable sources. Truly listen the voices of the victims and their families, and understand that this could happen anyone, as we see, or anywhere. So stay informed beyond just the headlines of the media, and support efforts, of course, that promote human rights, forensic development in places as Mexico, and government transparency. Sometimes I feel that everyone outside just see ours, like, through the glamorous of the narco culture that is presented in movies and documentaries, but this is an entertainment for us. It's a terrible human tragedy, and it's happening to everyone here. So just be informed yourselves to be empathetic with this human rights violation.
Thank you. Bushra?
Yeah. Can I say one do and one don't? So
Yes.
okay, let's start with don't. I would say please avoid relying on newspaper coverage of the Yazidi community, especially Yazidi women. And because when you look at the newspaper, especially I would say Western newspaper coverage of the Yazidi community, most of the time it is sexual violence related narratives. How many times a Yazidi woman was raped, how many ISIS members have raped a Yazidi woman or girl. So it is so simplistic. It undermines the coping strategies they develop under ISIS captivity, which enable them to stay alive under ISIS, which was, I think, important. And my recommendation would be that please engage with the legal instruments, if possible, in a way that helps the Yazidis find the missing ones, which eventually, ease the suffering of the Yazidi community, which is happening since 2014.
There's
Thank
so
you
much
very much.
information. I don't even know where to start with all of this, let alone we're already an hour into this conversation. And as Karen said, I think there's way more that we can speak of, and there's amazing knowledge that both of you have, let alone in this field. So I urge everybody that is listening to reach out to Busra, reach out to Aurora if you want to know more. Reach out to Karen and to me. We're happy to have this conversation further, as this is just the beginning. This is so much information. So I really appreciate it, Bushra and Aura, for your time today. And we'll close with today. But as I said, please reach out to any of us if you have questions, thoughts, ideas, etc. If you'd like to find out more about our work and our resources, we mentioned in the beginning, you can go to missingpersonsuncovered.com, leave a message, leave a email address, leave a comment with us, and we'll get back to you. As well as if you have thoughts about topics, please reach out to us. We're happy to have a discussion with you about potential future topics that we should discuss. If you please contact us through our website at missingpersonsuncovered.com. If you'd like specific information or need help, please reach out to your local NGO or to your police department. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a comment, leave a star rating on your podcast platform. Will be helpful for us to know if you like it. We will also love to hear from you that you've actually liked it, so please leave a comment. And for listeners on the platforms, please do the same. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Caroline Humer.
I'm Karen Shalev.
And we love that you listen to us. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Bushra. Thank you, Aurora, for your time. Join us next time when we will discuss missing people abroad. And we'll be joining us in about 2 weeks. So join us then. Thank you so much for joining us. Hold on, I think I'm still live, but that can be edited. Where are we here?